First item.
First item is a controller reports relative to the assessment of the Los Angeles Housing Department's homeownership loan program.
Great. Do we have staff here to report on this item?
Good afternoon. Cynthia Varela with the Controller's Office. The Controller's Office completed a risk assessment of the Housing Department's homeownership loan program, and we issued the report on July 16th, 2007. The overall objective of the assessment was to identify potential risks and areas for improvement related to the program and ensure it meets its primary goal, which is providing financial assistance to low and moderate income residents for purchasing a home. The homeownership loan program provides monies to help cover the difference between purchase price of the home and the first loan amount and to help pay closing and down payment costs. The scope of the review covered the program's functions and processes and controls for approving and managing homeownership loans, and including an assessment of the department's policies for selecting and monitoring lenders. We looked at the program activities from fiscal years 2003-4 through 2005-6. Overall, we noted that there were several opportunities for the department to improve the program's effectiveness. Some of the key findings and suggestions for improvement dealt with providing a process for more accurate program results. When we did the risk assessment, we found some discrepancies between reports that were being provided by the department to track the results of loans that have actually been funded, and we also thought that they should be tracking reasons for loan cancellations. This way it would enable them to determine where the cancellations are occurring in the loan process and determine the impact, if any, on staffing and workload. We noted that there was inadequate processes to ensure compliance with funding requirements. For example, the state's BEGIN program requires residents that receive funds from that particular program to stay in the home for up to 5 years. Unfortunately, there was no one within the housing department that was actually ensuring those residency requirements were met. We also thought marketing and outreach efforts could be improved. There are quite a number of events that are sponsored either by the housing department or other agencies, but what we found is most of them are geared toward required lender or realtor training or home buyer education courses. So we thought that the department could have a more targeted outreach and marketing program to go beyond the lenders and realtors and reaching those residents that may not realize that home ownership is possible for them. Performance measures, while there are performance measures for output goals, we found that staff was not always aware of what those goals were. They also could implement outcome or qualitative goals, such as tracking the time frame for loan processing or the percentage of available funds to be utilized. We recommended that the staff should be aware of performance measures in order to gauge the efficiency and effectiveness of the department's program. We also found that the loan processing time exceeds conventional lenders. When we talked with participating lenders in the program, they thought they needed a 45 to 60-day escrow when they're dealing with the city's program just to allow for additional signatures and document reviews, compared to a 30-day escrow for conventional lenders. Sometimes those delays are the cause or are the result of lenders not providing complete packets of information. We thought the department should determine if there's processing time can be further reduced and investigate the possibility of using wire transfers to expedite payments. And then the last significant issue dealt with the lack of integrated information systems. Some of the department systems were outdated and sometimes duplicative. At the time, housing was in the process of developing a new integrated system that would help track information. I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you. The general sense I take it from the Controller's Office is that there's been some progress towards following up with some of the recommendations of the audit, and it sounds like as if you're fairly you're comfortable with the progress. Is that an accurate assessment? Or
Well, we did get a response from the department after the issuance of the department, and we were satisfied with the action plans and timeframes that were provided then. We're actually getting ready to do our routine 6-month request for status of implementation. That should be going out shortly. The
Okay.
request should be going out shortly.
Any other questions? Yes.
I have a couple. One is the change in the funding. I mean, I know that this last year, maybe it's a housing department question, as the funding of home ownership, which was a top priority. Why was it moved? Was that a council action that moved the funds from home ownership? What was the reason we didn't fully expend to the level, since that's one of our major goals of creating home ownership?
Good afternoon, Yolanda Chavez with the Housing Department. Actually, the money that was moved was actually in fiscal year 03-04 and 05-06, or I'm sorry, 04-05. And I think that one of the things that's difficult for people who are not in our business to understand is that our finance programs are heavily impacted by the market and the economy. So during that time period, because we were only serving low-income home buyers with home funds, and as you all know, home prices went up to extremely high levels during that time, and the program was not moving because low-income home buyers could not afford to buy a home, even with our assistance. So what we did was what we felt was the responsible thing to do at that point, and move the money to the trust fund so that we could help finance rental units. Since that time, we're very happy to report that the program is doing great. In fact, this year we got an additional reprogramming of $5 million because of the demand. And all of that money has now been committed, and the program year is not over. So we have, from April 1st through March 31st, funded 141 loans in the low-income program and have committed now over $12 million. So it's a whole different situation now with
Right,
the program.
A trigger, and I bring that up only because of my own personal experience with one of my constituents who went one day to the who is now a home buyer, thank goodness, Chuck Tenon.
Chuck.
Yes, we all know Chuck.
Yes, we know Chuck.
Who went and they moved the money, during that period of time, but none of us were aware that when the program had kind of stopped or there wasn't funding, and that may be our own knowledge base of
Right. No, actually, at that point, the money was not moved. What happened was that the money that we received through the comp plan, which was, I think, about $4 or $5 million, had already been committed. So that is why we got an additional reprogramming of $5 million, and that's when we were able to be able to help Chuck when we got that additional funds.
A reprogramming of additional funds in that area. But is there a trigger mechanism for, knowing the market and it changing that, last year you moved the money within the department to other programs, needy, affordable, trigger mechanisms that you have that say, if the market has changed dramatically in this amount, then we're going to relook at our financing and move some back over, and how does that happen other than suddenly you have a great demand?
Right. No, we're constantly in tune with the market because we work with the lenders and we have to stay in tune with the market. Now, just to be clear, the money was not moved last year. It was in 03-04 and 04-05.
Okay.
Since then, there's been, the market has changed for low-income buyers to the point where this year, like I said, all of our money is committed, and we have 344 people on the wait list.
For that. And I know that's not part of the performance measures that were talked about today, those changes. So you have kind of a new system within the department to measure those?
The changes in the market? Or
changing the performance measures to if
Yes.
you say it's 5 years, they must live in that house by 5 years, or certain things that you add into their loan.
Yes, we've definitely implemented through our occupancy monitoring unit to be able to do that, to monitor the length of residency. So we're working on that in terms of our systems, where we are developing our own integrated data system, and for the home ownership unit, that system should be completed by the end of this fiscal year.
And are you finding, based on some of the challenges that are in the marketplace now, greater demand, even with consolidation and layoffs and all the other things, the market dropping in that instance.
Right. I think our challenge for this coming program year is funding. That it's a great time. I mean, these next 2 years are a great time for low-income home buyers because, unfortunately, with the market changing and foreclosures, unfortunately, provide opportunities for new home buyers, and that is why our list is at 344. And our concern is that we probably will not be able to meet that demand.
Thank you.
Ms. Stein?
How many have you successfully placed? You talk about 344 on the waiting list. How many have successfully been placed?
Tell you that since, excuse me. In this calendar year, we have been able to provide close 138 low-income loans, totaling $16.6 million. Since 2005, actually, both of our programs, low and moderate, have provided 551 loans. That means 551 new home buyers or homeowners in the city of Los Angeles.
How many of those have gone into default?
Our default rate is practically zero. None of these new home buyers have defaulted since 2005. We're our homeownership unit underwrites all of the loans. We don't allow subprime loans. We ensure that all of our home buyers take fixed rate interest loans. And at the back end, with our portfolio management unit, if a home buyer is going to get a line of credit or a line of equity approved on their home, we have to review that to ensure that it's not predatory.
And how long do we hold our connection with that loan?
The loan is a 30-year loan. It is payable upon sale or refinance. So it really depends. But what we find with our programs, because they serve low and moderate income home buyers, that people tend to stay in their home for a long time.
So it's normally a 30-year loan?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And is this citywide or just certain areas?
No, it's citywide.
You know how many you have in the valley?
I believe we should have that. Our moderate income program has done very well in the valley. But we can get you actually all of the stats by council district.
I'd like to get those.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Thank you very much. We'll note and file this report if it's okay with my colleagues.
Fine.
Next item. Thank you very much.
Second item is a Controller and Los Angeles Housing Department reports relative to the follow-up audit of the Housing Department's Systemic Code Enforcement Program.
Afternoon.
Yes, Rick Taguchi, Controller's Office. This audit report was issued in July 2007. The scope was to follow up on 15 recommendations contained in a report issued in 2001. The 2001 report found that the department lacked a systematic approach to prioritize properties for inspection, that they lacked an effective system to report inspection results and program results, and a need to reassess the funding for the program. The department has made good progress since 2001. The department increased staffing from 110 inspectors to 206 inspectors to enhance the likelihood of completing all required inspections. They developed systems and procedures to manage and track performance. The department implemented a new methodology to assign risk scores to each property. So the risk scores are then used to prioritize which properties will be inspected. And overall, we found that 12 of the 15 recommendations had been implemented. The two most critical issues that remain involve assessing the resources needed to meet mandated inspection targets and also ensuring the consistency and quality of inspections. In terms of meeting inspection targets, the municipal code requires each rental unit, and there's about 800,000 of them, to be inspected within 3 years. based on the department's current resources and productivity, they were on a 4-year inspection cycle. In terms of quality of inspections, we found that the inspectors do not use checklists when performing inspections. They're only required to document violations. We feel that checklists would help ensure consistency and also quality of inspections. We were a little bit concerned because our survey results indicated that 27% of inspectors stated that they sometimes compromise quality, and also that 30% said they couldn't recall when the last time their work was reviewed, or that it was reviewed less than 5 times over the previous year. So we felt by having this checklist, it would help ensure the consistency and quality of the inspections.
Thank you very much. Housing Department, any comments on that?
Yes, I would like to address the issue of the 3-year versus a 4-year cycle, but I'd like to call up our Director of Enforcement, Domingo Saucedo, to discuss the checklist and the other issues. On the issue of the 3 versus the 4-year cycle, we actually have analyzed that and decided and have made a recommendation in our fiscal year 08-09 budget to maintain the cycle at a 4-year. If we feel that after the first inspection cycle was completed, the deficiencies have gone down, and to go to a 3-year cycle would actually require us to more than double the fee. And we're very, very sensitive to this because, as you know, with the SCEP fee, this is wholly paid by the tenants. And at this point, just to maintain current service and maintain levels in terms of staffing and benefits, we're proposing a $5.49 increase to this fee. So we were to go through a 3-year cycle, we would have to recommend an increase of $12. And we just feel that at this point, we can maintain our services and provide the quality of work that is required through SCEP, which is an award-winning program, as you may know, was awarded the Harvard University Innovations in Government Award in 2005, that it makes sense to keep the inspection cycle at 4 years.
Now, you would be recommending that for when?
We actually have included that in our budget for fiscal year 08-09, just to keep it at 4 years. But even to keep it at 4 years, because of, as you know, salary increases and benefits, we have to increase the fee.
So that's to keep it at 4 years, and
just to maintain current service
yeah.
levels.
And has an analysis? It's hard to figure out, I guess, but an analysis has been done to figure out if some of the increase in fees are actually trickling down to higher rent payments? Because we're actually charging the landowner, correct?
Right. Well, we're sure that we assume that most landlords include that in their rent rates.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And in your experience with housing, do we find that these types of fees are usually kind of pass through to the tenants 100%, some percentage, or is there some
SCEP actually is.
It is 100%. It goes
to the tenant.
To the tenants. So most tenants, there's tenants out there who have been paying for this but haven't realized the benefit, correct?
Well, they have realized the benefits because every single rental unit in the city has been inspected.
Okay.
At least during one cycle, and now we're in the second year, starting the second year of the second cycle, and there's also a complaint process, so tenants can call if there are issues with their units, and our inspectors will go out and inspect.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, we're actually halfway through the second cycle at this time.
Okay.
Do you have priorities for example, if you've gone to a particular building that has had a couple of bad units, that are on the cycle or the bill. I don't know if you'd probably go to the whole building at the same time, I would assume. And again, the landlord has a reputation of not necessarily maintaining the building and the inspections. You don't wait? Do you have priorities for, we're not going to wait 4 years to go to that particular location because we've had a bad experience? Are there exceptions made to, here are some priority buildings that we're going to go to before that 4-year period?
Yes, we do. Actually, the ordinance allows us to go back and determine how often we can inspect these buildings. However, after the first cycle, we actually mapped all the critical high-risk buildings, and we went back to those buildings first on the second cycle, which we're allowed to do by ordinance. And we have actually found that we have actually reduced the number of high-risk buildings by over 60%, about 62% at this time in the second cycle.
Okay. And I guess the only other thing was that, comments made by the Controller's Office in the report about quality of it and using checklists. Have you guys using checklists or other quality assurance tools that you've developed?
Okay, well, actually, during the audit, we were in the process of developing a drop-down menu on all of our handheld devices that our inspectors use to document all the deficiencies. And they're all consistent, so all the inspectors have the same drop-down menu as they enter a unit. While they're not designed to inspect by default, because that would really, first of all, that's not the inspection standard throughout the country, where an inspector would go in and have to inspect every single item. Rather, we go in and we observe the deficiencies based on the drop-down menu, but we do cover all the deficiencies that are identified in the inspection process on each individual unit. So that's in place already, and the inspectors are using those types of drop-down menus on all their devices.
Mr. Stein? Okay, we'll note and file this report. Thank you very much. Next item.
Item number 3 is a motion by Council members Wesson and Huizar and reports relative to a citywide strategy to increase the net supply of affordable housing and related matters.
When this motion was heard at HCD, we actually requested a few amendments, and we'd like to go through. I would like to go through those to also request the same amendments from you, get that approved. We requested a few changes on the dates. In terms of the draft report, we requested that we be allowed to release that draft report on March 1st, 2008. And that the final report be completed based on that first hearing of the draft report. And, of course, depending on what additional information council may need. On the issue of the annual report, we requested that be changed to December of each year because, as you know, our trust fund is a major vehicle for producing or financing these units, and on that program, we're in a calendar year because of the state leveraging sources. So we requested December there. On the item related to the affordable housing covenants, we would also include that in the overall report. And on the next item related to the 15% ordinance, there was a separate motion introduced on that item, which actually requested the transfer of the ordinance to the housing department. What we requested was that we be allowed to analyze the ordinance to see if we would either keep it as is, recommend amendments to the ordinance, or recommend that it be repealed. So that report will be coming within the next couple of weeks on that recommendation regarding the 15% ordinance. On the last...
That it be repealed, you're recommending?
Well, we actually requested that you allow us some time to, to determine whether the ordinance should stay as is and be transferred to the housing department, or to see if we can change it to make it work, and if not, that we would come back and recommend that it be repealed. So our recommendation will be coming to you shortly. But those are the three options that we're looking at. In the last item related to the citywide land acquisition fund, we've already, as you know, been working on two of these acquisition funds. One of them has been finalized, which is the LA Supportive Housing Fund, and the other one is a New Generation Fund, which will be a $200 million land acquisition and pre-development fund, and we hope to be able to finalize that in March. We're an investor in the fund, as will be SCRA will also be an investor in the fund. And then finally, so we'll also include that in our draft report, because that's obviously one of the sources to be able to meet the affordable housing need in the city. And then finally, the issue with the city-owned land, we have already analyzed the over 600 properties that are under the GSD's control. So we will also come back and include that report in our draft report. So those are the changes that we're requesting.
So if you could please, again, summarize what we expect to, what's in the report for the March report.
What we hope to provide you is a discussion on how the citywide needs assessment can be met and what it would take to meet that need. In terms of the need, we will be using the RENA numbers because, as you know, we're required by state law to be able to meet that housing need. And our RENA numbers are they're for a period of 8.5 years that I've started on January 1st, 2006 through June 30th, 2014. And so we will be addressing those numbers and in terms of how we could meet that need within the next 8.5 years.
Okay. And the December report, the annual report.
The annual report, what we hope to give you is a citywide housing production report, of course, focused on what LHD has produced for that year. But one of the things that we're working on, as well as a response to this audit that we had started working on prior to the audit, was the implementation of a citywide housing production system. It's really critical that we have a database that not only gives us the affordable housing that's being constructed in the city, but also all housing. And we feel that as the housing department, we should be the department that initiates this process and works with all the departments that impact housing production so that we could actually have numbers annually on what the city is producing.
Now, would these reports contain recommendations for the council to adopt in terms of addressing our affordable housing needs in the city?
Yes.
And would you, so they're recommendations, or it's not, or how will, because we focus more on the needs assessment rather than saying, hey, this is a comprehensive way that we could address the affordable housing needs in the city.
Right. Well, I think part of our reports not only is providing the needs, but then how do we address that need?
Okay.
So we will have recommendations as to how we would address that need.
Okay. Other questions?
Yeah, I mean, as you may recall, Yolanda, do you know what I'm going to say?
Yes.
Yes, you know exactly what I'm going to say. Because when I chaired Housing Committee, I actually introduced a motion near the end, I think, of my tenure as chair of Housing Committee, which was wanting to have a citywide strategy on housing. And I know it's been promised and talked about. Is this in place of that? Or is this part of the strategy that looks at, again, if you were to ask somebody in the city of Los Angeles, and we're doing the same on the transportation right now, what is the strategy by the city of Los Angeles? What's their focus? What are their priorities? And how does that relate to staffing that they have, financial resources, government grants that they get, et cetera? Do we have that kind of...
You know, we were hoping, and I know that it should be released soon, that the mayor's 5-year strategy would be completed. And I think the last time when we were here last, maybe in September, I think our general manager mentioned that we were hoping that the mayor's 5-year housing strategy would be out by December or November, actually, and be able to incorporate that. And we're still hoping that if it's out, we'll be able to incorporate it into this report.
Is that a strategy that the department is putting together? Is that a strategy the mayor's has consultants putting together?
It's a strategy that the mayor's office is the lead on.
Okay.
So it's not within our department at
Is
this
that
point.
superseding the request that we had as the motion that asked for there to be a strategy by the department?
Well, I believe that was going to be that we were going to be able to, our plan was to use that as part of our strategy, because we have given our recommendations to the mayor's office on what that strategy should include.
Okay. and I guess I would only say
Mm-hmm.
this asking for the strategy was 2 mayors ago, or the prior mayor and council, and that some of that information should come to the city. To the council as
Right.
well as the mayor, because we had asked for that information.
Right.
So.
But
To
as
me,
part
that's
of
very
that,
important, coming from my background, that was really what we wanted to be able to do.
Right.
And I know it's hard when we're dealing with day-to-day kinds of things that we need to do in programmatic, but I think it is a guideline, and that the council clearly by this motion, which is
Right.
very much like asking for a strategy, it has some more specifics in it, but it says, here are some of the issues that we think are
Right.
important. But
right, and I think what you'll find when you get a report that we will outline it as a strategy to meet this need.
Okay. It'd be nice to remind people that we did have this question asked previously,
Yes.
and that I think there was a discussion last night in our business tax committee. We had a hearing in the Valley last night, and we heard from a group of individuals, both from the business retention as well as some of the people who've been involved in just overall business retention and recruitment, housing being a big part of it. And I think that needs to be one aspect of this, is involving the business community, because their ability to keep those jobs here dependent upon having affordable housing, and even more importantly, or probably equally importantly, to having housing that is adjacent, nearby, that they don't have to travel and be in traffic to do that.
Right.
So.
Thank you. Well, this actually came to this committee via the controller's audit, and it's raising various larger questions regarding our housing strategy for the city. But I'll keep these reports, this item in our committee pending the release of the housing department's report, and we'll hear these items when they come to the HCD committee and to this committee. Okay, that's okay. So we'll continue this item pending the release of the housing department's report in March. Thank you very much, and I think that concludes our meeting. And thank you very much, my colleagues and everyone. Meeting adjourned. And I'm sorry for being late. I may have saved it.